was very green to the injustices of the world. You know, when you're constantly working with your head down and not really paying attention, you know, until it happens to you.
Which side are you on? Which side are you on?
All right, folks, we are back with Sekie Royal. She is the president of UE, the United Electrical Workers Local 150, representing public and private sector employees in North Carolina. She is a cook for the Department of Health and Human Services of North Carolina. Sekie, thank you so much for joining the show. I really appreciate it.
Thank you for having me. It's great to be here.
Absolutely. So let's start off with your journey to the labor movement. What was it that made you decide to become a union member, to join the union, and then to become active and you know, be an active participant in your union?
Well, what first made me decide to join a union is all the favoritism and bullying and retaliation that was going on in my department and my particular state hospital that I worked in. We had some supervisors and even directors in the hospital that were participating in retaliation and bullying. And one of my good coworkers got fired, you know, with based on lies and, you know, them having people write false statements. And so that got me fired up. The UE Local 150 had a rally on the City Hall steps to talk about the injustices in DHHS, and that was the day I signed up, and that was back in 2015.
Gotcha. And so you've been a member of UE Local 150 for about 7 years. Did you have a history with unions or anything like that before being a member of UE 150?
No, I didn't. I really can honestly say that I was very green to the injustices of the world. You know, when you're constantly working with your head down and not really paying attention, you know, until it happens to you. And so to answer that, no, I was never familiar or had any affiliation with the union until then.
None of your family were members?
And I believe that it was also...
I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, no, none of my family members or anything were members. The unions were not big in my part. I grew up in a small town, Kansas, and so unions was not a big talk, you know, growing up. So, no, it wasn't.
Right. And I similarly grew up in a small town, not in Kansas, but in Alabama, and I am only aware of one of my family members who has ever worked in a union environment, and the rest of my family are generally kind of anti-ish union, but this and they're all really conservative for whatever reason, including the guy who is a member of the Teamsters and speaks very highly of being of unions as far as they are good for workers, but he hasn't quite figured out that conservative politicians want to destroy him.
Absolutely. And, you know, I really believe that it was kind of a good thing that I didn't have any familiarity with unions because of the type of union that we have. We don't have a traditional union. We have a members-ran union, so decisions are made from the bottom up. Work is done from the bottom up. We do not have a paid, a person that kind of negotiates union. Yeah, we do have paid staff, but we don't have union negotiators and things like that. Any work that needs to be done, we kind of train up our members and they do the legwork, and our organizer just, kind of guides us through.
Right. Talk to us some about that. How has it worked for you being in the UE? The UE is like you said, it is kind of a different union than some. There is certainly much more of an emphasis on being member run, on being democratic, on not relying so much on staff. How has your membership and including yourself responded to that type of organizing?
We have responded, I believe, quite well. It's very intimidating at first, when you come from not having any type of union background and, you're just kind of speaking up on your own behalf. But UE is really good about training up for the members, and also it has empowered a lot of people, knowing that they can actually fight their own fight, learning the different steps that it takes and how to maneuver around bosses, and, just training people up and giving them the knowledge to fight for themselves has been very empowering.
You've mentioned training a couple of times. What are some of the trainings that the UE, that your union gives its members, that the members give each other?
Well, we, a lot of our organizing is, grassroots. We kind of do, person to person, passing flyers, talking to legislators and different things like that. And so, I forgot the question, Lord.
What are some of the trainings that y'all give your members?
So we just give them basic. Yes, sir. So we just give them basic. We start off with basic union training. The roles of the executive board, what it is to be a steward. How stewards work and how important they are in the workplace, and training on gathering information and documentation, different things like that is what the kind of smaller trainings that we start our new members off with.
In North Carolina, collective bargaining by public sector employees has been banned since 1959. So y'all are having to organize in an environment where it is illegal to collectively bargain with your employer, with the state, with the municipal governments. What is it like organizing in that environment, keeping membership up and engaged and fighting on issues without being able to rely on the formal collective bargaining process?
It's been a tough fight here in the South. Like you mentioned, collective bargaining has been banned since 1959. In the Jim Crow era, where the South is still traditionally a lot of prejudice is going on, so to speak, and so sometimes it's a very hostile environment, and we encounter a lot of workers that just don't know their basic rights as workers. They know that collective bargaining is illegal, or not illegal, but banned. Mm-hmm. It's not illegal, but it's banned. And so with that language being on the books, it's very intimidating for some people to speak up or step out because in fear of retaliation, or they just don't want to have a target from the boss on their back. So it's been kind of hostile, but it's been the way we have to organize. Like I said, it's very empowering because you have to learn these things for yourself. You have to kind of get in the trenches and make phone calls and send emails, and like for instance, with DHHS, the Department of Health and Human Services is where I work. We don't have collective bargaining, but we have had meetings and communication with the DHHS leadership in Raleigh that, we have meet and confers with them every quarter. So even though we don't have a contract to negotiate, they still sit at the table and pretend to listen to our issues and try and pretend that they're gonna try to solve them. So been kind of tough, and it's really a big need for collective bargaining and organizing unions in the South, just because of the environment. In the South, traditionally, they have a higher amount of black and brown workers. And so they're more discriminated against, I would say, than others. Like, for instance, North Carolina, we have some of the lowest wages in the country right now, at minimum wage at $7.25 an hour. But North Carolina gives the biggest corporate tax breaks to companies moving their companies into North Carolina. So they gave over $10 billion last year just in tax breaks to some of the bigger corporations like Amazon that has moved in the area in the last year. So, I mean, in a sense, North Carolina is exploiting their workers by allowing these companies to come in, giving them all this money, and yet still they're paying the low in the country. That's just one of the reasons why we feel like collective bargaining is very necessary in the South. We have a lot of environmental injustices here in the South as far as, dumping. We have a lot of hog farms and chicken farms here in North Carolina that the Department of Labor is not forcing them to keep their waste contained. We had a couple of major hurricanes down here in North Carolina a couple of years back, and we had big issues with the hog pens overspilling and environmental issues with that. Duke Energy is one of the biggest dumpers of North Carolina. I wouldn't go so far as to say on purpose, but they are not being careful with the environment. And some of them have a lot of contaminated water down here because of the dumping of Duke Energy and the hog farms and, things like that.
Right.
I don't know. There's just a lot.
No, yeah, that's totally right. And you mentioned earlier the ban on collective bargaining is in some sense a vestige of Jim Crow and discrimination. And this is something that not enough people, certainly outside of the labor movement, very few people outside of the labor movement are aware of this, and not enough people inside of the labor movement are aware of the fact that a lot of the attacks on labor, on organized labor, on unions, are derivative of attacks on black folks and minorities. The right to work was explicitly pushed forward as a racist project. And I've got this article open from Dissent magazine. They said that a key driver of the right to work movement beginning in the 30s was Texas businessman and white supremacist Vance Muse, who hated unions in part because they promoted the brotherhood of workers across racial lines. And in his advocacy for right to work, he said that if right to work was not implemented, then white women and white men will be forced into organizations with forgive me, black African apes whom they will have to call brother or lose their jobs. And this is, this is the kind of thing that people were saying against unions as they were pushing legislation to try to destroy us. And this is something that Martin Luther King recognized in the during the Civil Rights Movement. He said in an address to the AFL-CIO that the labor hater and the labor baiter is virtually always a twin-headed creature spewing anti-Negro epithets from one mouth and anti-labor propaganda from the other mouth. And this is, that's an important thing to pull out and to emphasize is that, the fight against labor has always been a fight to divide working people along racial and gender and any other line that you can imagine, other than the dividing line of class. That's the one line that they don't want us to understand, is that there's a difference between, our position and our boss's position.
Absolutely.
And so you mentioned some of the unique ways that you have to conduct your organizing, the unique ways that you have to advocate for yourself and organize for yourself, because you can't collectively bargain, and you have had some success in that. You have been able to win gains for workers in North Carolina in UE Local 150. Can you talk to us about some of the things that y'all been able to win for your members?
Oh, yes. We can go back as far as 2017. We can start just there. So in 2017, UB 150 won $15 minimum wage for state employees. And then the following year, of course, they had to pay as less people as possible. So they left out part-timers and they left out some other people. And so we doubled back on them, and we won their $15 an hour as well. We've won within the city workers. We've won recently in Charlotte, North Carolina. Charlotte, North Carolina just recently won their minimum wage of $20 an hour for city workers. Before our campaigns got started, there were some city workers who were getting paid as low as $12 an hour.
Wow.
And we won it to 15 a couple of years ago, and then we won it to $16.50 back in 2020. And now we have won for the city of Charlotte minimum wage of $20 an hour for city workers. We've won them, favor in their insurance package, getting them to not have to pay a premium in some of our cities. During the pandemic, we launched what is the Safe Jobs, Save Lives campaign, along with the Southern Workers Assembly. And we were able, for our DHHS workers, we were able to win PPE equipment. We were able to win hazard pay of time and a half. We were able to win sick leave of 80 hours due to COVID during that campaign. And in the cities, we were able to get some. It was a difference in between some of the cities. Like I believe Greensboro got a 5% COVID pay. We've been winning different things for different cities. We have to launch separate campaigns because they don't all follow the same guidelines. You would think a city worker in Raleigh had the same pay or at least the same set of guidelines and rules to go by in the city of Durham. But, each of their cities run their cities a different way. So we had to come up with different campaigns for each city. So, we've been able to, like I said, win hazard pay. We've been able to win a step pay plan in the city of Greensboro and Charlotte, based on the years of service. So when they started giving people the $16.50 an hour 2 years ago, we were able to increase the pay of the workers that had been there based on their years of experience, so that the people coming in the door wasn't making the same amount as the people that had been there for 10 years. And right now we're working on that within DHHS as well.
I mean, you mentioned that at one of those places, the minimum wage was prior $12 an hour, and then they went to, in Charlotte, it was to $20 an hour. That's a big deal to be, I mean, to be able to do that without the formal process of collective bargaining, which I think really underscores the fact that the unions and collective bargaining are not some, like it's not one size fits all, and there are ways to get around obstacles that the government or the boss puts in front of you to be able to win for yourself. And the thing that is going to win for you, whether or not you've got a collective bargaining agreement or anything like that, is the organization of your workers. How organized are your members? How dedicated are they to one another and to the fight and to their community? That's going to be the dividing line, it seems to me, between are you going to get a good contract or are you not? Or are you going to win or not?
Absolutely. And I just want to point out that increase in Charlotte from $12 to $20 an hour, that happened over several years. I want to say we started our campaign was back in 2016. And like I said, we made small steps. But for I think that for it to go from $16.50 an hour and up to $20 in just in these 2 years, that definitely was a big victory. And how they won that was constantly leafleting workers, getting them aware of, the issues and getting them talking, going to the city manager's office, demanding meetings, going to City Hall with banners and getting on the roll to speak, and just pleading with the people and the community. And the community support is one of the biggest things that our union has.
That's fantastic.
Because we always say that workers issues are the community issue, and vice versa.
Sekie Royal, that's as good a place as any to end it. I really appreciate your time. I'm going to be talking to Sekie and Patrick Corte on a panel at Labor Notes on organizing the South. Sekie, I really look forward to meeting you at Labor Notes and talking some more.
All right. Well, thank you. Thank you so very much. I'm sorry we kind of got froze. So thank you guys for taking your time to listen to the issues that we have here in North Carolina, and organize the South.
Yep. Hell yeah. Thank you.
Great. Thank you very much. I really appreciate it.
Thank you, guys.
You just saw a clip from the Valley Labor Report. We are live every Saturday morning from 9:30 a.m. till 12:30 p.m. And we pride ourselves on keeping all of our content free to everybody so that we can talk to as many working folks as possible. If you support the work that we're doing, you think that it's important, you think that it's good, then consider making a monthly contribution to the project, and you can do that on our website, tvlr.fm.